Hello, I'm Heather.
And I'm Ryan.
Welcome to the podcast. It's game night, it's sibling rivalry, it's a walk down memory lane, but most importantly, it's politics free.
Guaranteed.
Welcome to round 5 of Your Worst Nightmare. Here's how it works. We have a set of cards. On each one is written a nightmare. We'll pick 4 cards, and Ryan will have to place them in the correct order according to what he thinks my worst nightmare is. Then we'll flip it around, and it'll be my turn. Whoever scores the most points wins the ever-coveted Gloating Rights Trophy.
Until we play again.
You're getting better at it. You're getting better at it. And, by the way, we have a listener response this week, so stay tuned for that.
Oh, it's the one that I sent you.
It's the one you sent me.
Okay.
Full disclosure, friend of the podcast. We'll get into it in a bit. So, Ryan, the current running score is Ryan 20, Heather 14.
Woo.
So let's get into this. Are you ready for your first cards?
I am ready.
Excellent. Warts, waterborne diseases, being stranded in the desert, undersides of tables in public places. Again, that's warts, waterborne diseases, being stranded in the desert, undersides of tables in public places. What is my least nightmare to my most nightmare?
Okay.
Hit it.
So I've got number 4 at undersides of tables in public places.
Correct.
Yes. Number 3, warts.
Correct.
Yes. Number 2, waterborne diseases.
Correct.
Yes! And that means stranded in the desert is number 1.
No, wrong. Absolutely. No, you got it. You got it. You nailed it. I think this is pretty straightforward. If I were stranded in the desert, I would die.
Yeah.
I would be dead. I would not survive that. I am not a survival. I've actually thought about this. I've thought about signing up for like a survival class and just going out. You know, one of those things where they teach you and then they drop you off in the woods for 3 days and you have to survive.
Yeah, but you have to get them to throw you into the desert for 3 days.
Cool. I might want to start with something a little easier to survive first in this journey.
Listen, I think that it would be easier to survive in the woods with little to no training than it would be to survive in the desert with little to no training.
That's what I'm saying. If I'm going to learn it, I should learn it. I should start with an environment that's easier and then work my way to a harder environment.
No.
Okay, well, I disagree with your method.
0 to 60, Heather. 0 to 60.
I have kids, so it's really never going to happen unless they want to come with me on that journey. And I feel like that's child abuse.
Take us to the desert with you, Heather.
So we're going to move on. All right.
Okay.
By the way, sorry, let me not forget. So you scored 4 points, bringing
Yes.
your total score to 24. Now let's see how I do.
All right. So your cards are centipedes, wide open spaces, blizzards, and cemeteries. That's centipedes, wide open spaces, blizzards, cemeteries.
All right. This one was tricky for me.
It was tricky for me.
Number 4, wide open spaces.
Correct.
Number 3, cemeteries.
Yep.
Number 2, centipedes.
Yeah, you got it.
Number 1, blizzards. Oh, nailed it. Because blizzards, all I could picture there was getting stuck in a blizzard.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's the worse than anything else there. So.
And I live in the Northwest where we don't get a lot of snow, so I don't know how to deal with that.
I have driven legitimately in blizzards at nighttime now, so I am quite comfortable driving in a small little bit of snow.
So back when I was 18, I think, it was about 18, and I was still living where we grew up, and that big windy road that goes up to where we lived, I was going up that hill with another person who was very uncomfortable driving in the snow. it was just one of those light dustings.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's driving up the hill. It was dark. It wasn't even snowing. It was just dark, slight dusting on the road. And she was just hyperventilating the entire time. And I'm like sitting there wide-eyed, like, I'm uncomfortable because I feel like you're going to kill us. And I'm just sitting there freaking out because she's like having full-on panic attack driving this vehicle in the snow. And so, you know, like where the trees kind of overhang and it leaves like an empty patch of no snow on the road.
Yes.
Well, she hit one of those and it caused the car to get like better traction and it like slightly fishtailed and she like lets out this shriek, starts bawling. I was like, oh, dear God, this is how we die. And so she finally makes it up to like where the tennis courts are. And I was like, hey, pull over here. Why don't you come sit in the passenger seat? I'll take us the rest of the way. At the time, I'd only had my license for like a couple months, but I felt more comfortable driving in the snow than she did. And I took us the rest of the way up. It was only terrifying because she made it terrifying. Like, I legitimately thought that she was so uncomfortable with it, like she was probably going to roll us over that hill and kill us both.
I've been in a similar circumstance, I will admit. All right. The running score after that round is Ryan 24, Heather 18. I am catching up.
Well, not really, because we got 4 and 4, so you just didn't get behind more, Heather.
Anyway, are you ready for your next cards?
I am.
You're going to suck at it. Your cards are Thunder, Big Cities, Unable to Move, Getting Old. That is Thunder, Big Cities, Unable to Move, Getting Old. From my least to my worst fear, Ryan, hit it.
I'm pretty sure I got the last two mixed up, but here we go.
Okay.
Number 4, Thunder.
Correct.
Number 3, Big Cities.
Correct.
Okay. Here goes nothing. Number 2, Getting Old.
Correct.
Yes! Okay. And then number 1, Unable to Move.
28 for you. So even if I get all 4 of these next ones, I will have not caught up at all in this game. This is such an annoying game.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love it. I love it. Okay, let me get my cards here, Heather. You ready for this?
No.
Your cards are Touching Dryer Lint, Missing Your Flight, Spiders, Lawyers. That's Touching Dryer Lint, Missing Your Flight, Spiders, and then Lawyers.
All right. From least to worst.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, Touching Dryer Lint.
Yes.
Number 3, Spiders.
Wrong.
Oh, number 2, Missing Your Flight.
Wrong.
Number 1, Lawyers.
Wrong.
Well, I got all 3 of those wrong. I got one right.
Yeah,
I hate this
you
game.
got
This game
one
is the
right.
worst game I've ever
Listen.
played in my life.
Heather, this one was really tough for me, okay? I already knew that my number 1 thing was going to be missing my flight. Like, I've never missed a flight before. I don't know how that works. It's just getting to the airport stresses me out. It's a stressful situation. We have come close to missing a flight, but have not missed one. And it just, like, I don't know how I would deal. I would be so angry, I think, if we missed a flight.
Well, but you know, the problem is with missing a flight is they're not always great about it. Sometimes you got to pay
Right.
extra for another flight, or, you know, it's not guaranteed that you're going to get a flight. So I understand that.
Yeah.
So what is your order?
So I went Touching Lint, number 4. Number 3, Lawyers. Number 2, Spiders. Those were the 2 where I was just like, I don't know. Like, I've had to deal with a lawyer before, and it was a great experience. I know a couple people who are lawyers, and they're great people. Spiders in general don't bother me. If it looks like a Black Widow, I'm freaking out, which I have a story about. But I figured there's more deadly spiders than there are deadly lawyers.
That is the name of this episode. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So what's your Black Widow story?
I was doing some side work for this guy. And I was in his garage. I was moving some stuff around because I was getting ready to like paint his floor. And I was moving some stuff around, and this spider lands on my arm. And I was getting ready to like flick it. And I looked down and I saw that hourglass. And I screamed like a little girl and threw my arm. And I sent that spider flying. I have no idea where, but I was looking all over for it to kill it because I did not want to find it again.
You know, we should have grown up in Oklahoma. I tell you what, I remember we were visiting. It was once when we were really little. Our cousin was there with some friends, and we were playing outside. I do not remember what we were playing or where we were going, but we came to this fence, and there was a gap in the fence that you could walk through, and across the gap was this massive spider web, and smack dab in the middle of it was a Black Widow spider.
Oh, no.
And they were like, just crawling under the Black Widow web. So I was like, okay. So I crawled under. So I'm just saying, grow up where they're everywhere, I guess.
Well, I mean, I guess to be fair, I guess Black Widows can't actually like kill you, or it's unlikely that you'll die by a Black Widow bite. But if you get bit enough by them, then it could kill you.
So like if 10 of them bit you at once or something?
Sure, something like that.
Okay. You know what? I'm going to choose not to Google that, and we're going to move on.
Okay.
So for this round, Ryan, you scored 8, and I scored 5.
Nice, very nice.
Which means you're the winner of I've won only a single round in this whole game. What is this, the 5th round? If I don't turn it around... Okay, anyways.
Heather, do you know what this is?
The world's tiniest stupid violin.
Uh-huh.
Nobody can see the stupid tiny violin.
I want you to cry me a river, Heather. Tell me how much you suck at this game, Heather.
Well, I will, Ryan, because the running score is 28 Ryan, 19 Heather. So... let's just move on. Here's the situation. It's time for research inspired by this week's game. In the not-too-distant past, I went through a little phase where I potentially thought the world might end.
Oh.
I wanted to be prepared.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought this book, the 3rd edition SAS Survival Handbook, The Ultimate Guide to Surviving Anywhere by John Lofty Wiseman.
Have you read the section on deserts by any chance?
Well, that's what we're going to get into. Surviving the desert research.
Oh, okay.
All right. So there's actually a whole ton to it, but I figured I'd pick the most important 2 things to know. And one of those is preparedness. If you're in an airplane, say, and you crash in the middle of the desert, you probably weren't planning on being in the middle of the desert. But generally speaking, if you've gone out into the middle of a desert, you did it on purpose, right?
Sure.
So you should prepare ahead of time. Map your route, know where all the water holes, oases?
Is that actually how you say it?
I'm going to go with oases. I like oases. We're sticking with that. Know where all the water holes, oases, wells, etc. are. The wells can be very deep, so you got to bring a line with you so you can reach it. So if your vehicle breaks down, say in the middle of this, keep to that route that you had mapped out. By the way, don't stay inside of your vehicle. Make sure you have water with your survival kit. He has like a full-blown pages and pages of survival kit, but it includes things like a magnifying glass, a compass, a first aid kit, condoms, because they make a good water receptacle, fuel, flashlight. He's got a ton of other stuff. You keep it all in a big pouch. In the desert specifically, you want to also bring some really warm clothing because the temperatures can drop below freezing at night in the desert.
Right.
But also, if you're in the desert, you should save the bulk of your traveling for the evening, like late in the day and overnight, and rest during the day when the sun is highest and it's hottest.
Right.
which I would not have thought of, even though that seems really obvious when an expert tells you. I would so have just been walking through the desert in the middle of the hot day if I had gotten stranded there.
Hell yeah.
All right. Now, the other super important thing to know, I mean, there's a lot to know, but here's the other thing. Water is your top priority. If you have it, like you brought it with you because you were prepared, ration it. If you don't have it, you got to find it. Note, according to Old Lofty, in the SAS Survival Handbook, 3rd edition, don't eat if you don't have any water to drink because it will further dehydrate you.
Very interesting.
Yes, see, that's another thing I would have effed up. Okay, some things to keep in mind to help you find water in a desert region. Dig at the lowest point between dunes.
Oh.
Dig on the outside edge of a bend in a dried up stream.
Interesting.
You can get water from various roots and cacti. Okay, and some desert regions do get condensation at certain times, so you can collect up the condensation. But there's so much more to it, which is why I was talking about earlier, it would be cool to like actually practice this stuff and go do one of these.
Just out of curiosity, in that book, does it mention at what point you start drinking your pee?
Didn't get that far. But he does have a survival case study that I want to read because it's very interesting. It says this. In the mid-1960s, I was training a new army unit in Kenya. The training area was in the northern frontier district of Kenya, a very hot and dry area. The recruits were dropped off in groups of 4 and had to navigate across country to a series of rendezvous points where they were given water. My job with 3 others was to man these rendezvous points, ensuring that everyone was accounted for and in good health. Each recruit was given half a pint of water strictly issued from a jerry can, which held 4.5 gallons, 36 pints. On the 3rd day, the heat was taking its toll and everyone was complaining of various ailments like blisters, sores caused by backpacks, and fatigue. But one student was particularly bad. He was delirious and verging on the point of collapse. While I was treating him, his partner grabbed a jerry can, that is the 4.5-gallon can, and tried to swallow the lot. What he couldn't swallow, he spilled. And by the time we wrestled the can from him, it was almost empty. This was the last of our supplies, and there were still more than 30 men to come. The nearest source of water was 3 days away, and with no resupply possible, the exercise turned from hard to critical. Although all the recruits came from nearby areas, they had no water discipline, which we found out to our cost. By strictly rationing and sending the strongest for help, everyone survived, but it's a lesson they will never forget.
Yeah, no kidding.
Lessons learned. 1. Never underestimate the power of self-preservation. 2. Protect your water supply. 3. Enforce strict rationing. And then just a nice little note here at the end. When treating a person with dehydration, wet their lips first and look for a gag reflex, swallowing. Administer small sips only. When giving treatment, always make sure the patient is lying down in any available shade.
Very nice. Very educational. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome. And I'm sure maybe there's some people listening that already knew all that. It was all new to me, and it's good to know.
Absolutely.
Which brings us to survival stories from Reddit.
Oh, okay.
This is from Nahin123. When I was 16 or 17, I was on my way home very late with 5 of my friends. As we are walking, this white Cherokee Jeep stops abruptly behind us and 3 men get out. Our instincts kicked in, and everyone started running, including me. Unluckily, all 5 of my friends ran in one direction, while I ran in the opposite direction.
Did he run towards the men?
I'm not sure. Probably not. As I'm trying to evade, my leg trips and I slip. One of the guys grabs hold of me, throws me down, and tells me to hand over my cell phone. I say no. A second guy throws a can of beer at me and then punches me. Was pretty sure he was drunk. Talking in gibberish. I hand over my cell phone, thinking these guys are just looking to mug me and will probably leave me alone. Then the third guy comes to me and tells me to get in the Jeep. Now I know for sure I'm getting kidnapped. As he tries to drag me along, my instincts kick in. I go limp and pretend to have an asthma attack right there in the middle of the road. The third guy is confused. The second one starts making a worrying face and tells his friends that they better leave. I lie there for a good 2 to 3 minutes acting dead before I get up. Now here's the kicker. I find a wallet. It belonged to the first guy who had taken my cell phone. This man was 18 and worked for the Ministry of Defense. I run to a random building and knock on the first door I see and call my relatives. We go to the police station and file a report and get him to the station. He ends up coming to the station with my cell phone and a receipt claiming that, quote, I had thrown rocks on his window, so he wanted to compensate by taking the phone, end quote. The cops didn't buy it and gave him a long lecture. That's it. No jail, nothing. I did get a paper containing his identity, etc., assuring that if anything happened again, he was going to jail. It was wrong from my part that I didn't mention that these guys tried to kidnap me as well. I don't know why you left that out, bud. But I never went out late at night for the next 2 years after the incident.
Yeah.
But that's some clever thinking in the moment there.
Jeez.
Yeah, just be like, oh, I'm dying. And then they're like, oh, he's dying. Leave. We were going to kill him probably, but now let's get out of here. All right, from Mark Jolly. I was in the middle of nowhere in the Nevada desert down a dirt road, and suddenly the truck falls into a deep portion of the road that has been filled in with superfine silt dust that has blown in. The truck is bottomed out and unable to move. I had a little amount of water left and about 30 to 40 miles in any direction to walk to a highway, and it was a cell phone dead zone. He did not prepare properly for being in the middle of the desert. Let's move on. I could attempt to dig out, but that might take forever, and I didn't have that much water. I could wait for night and attempt to hike out over the next 2 days while attempting to make my water last. Maybe. That would have actually been the smartest thing. But then I saw a puff of dust on the other side of the playa, which is a dried-up lake bed, which was a new word that I learned while reading this story.
And it almost sounds like there would be water there. Continue.
Well, he might have to dig at the edge where there's a bend. Mm-hmm. Well, except it's a lake, not a river, but whatever. If it was moving slowly, it might be a grader that occasionally comes through these remote areas to maintain the road. I waited and watched. It was moving slowly, so I grabbed all my remaining water and started hiking across the playa. About an hour later, I could see the shape of the grader. I tried signaling with my compass mirror to no avail. The grader passed me, and I was too out of water and energy to run to it. Ration the water. You should have rationed the water. Let's move on. I fell in behind and started following. Eventually, the guy turned around, which is when he saw me. I walked up and told him my situation. Then I asked if he could call for help or drive me out. He looked at me for a long time, then hemmed and hawed, but essentially said, I can't help you, buddy. Seriously? Because I used up pretty much half my water trying to get to you. Again, should have rationed, man. It's fine. Prepare better next time. I'm getting all mad at him. Sorry, can't help, he said in a rather final way. He drove on and I considered my options. I was in the opposite direction from where I needed to be. I walked back to the truck. I'm sitting back in the covered bed with little to no water left and fewer options when I hear a rumbling sound. The grader is coming my way and clearing the road as it comes. The dude had a change of heart and cleared the road enough for me to get the truck out and on my way. I stopped at the first gas station and drank the biggest big gulp I could down and toasted it to that grader driver. He redeemed himself just barely there.
But that's just like, that blows my mind. Like, what kind of a human does that?
Yeah. It's unbelievable to me. I just like, seriously, man? You're in the middle of the desert. All right, it's time for the randomly generated question of the week from randomwordgenerator.com. What's the best trick someone has ever played on you? I've got one if you don't right away.
Go ahead.
I must have been about 5 years old. Mom was tucking me into bed. I was super mad at her for reasons I do not now remember, but I'm sure we're totally childish. And I said to her, I hate you, Mom. And I turned around and threw the cover over my head and pouted. And I heard her leave the room. And I just sat there pouting all mad for stupid reasons for about a minute. And then all of a sudden I was consumed by guilt for being so mean to my mom. So I was like, I'm going to go apologize. So I throw the covers off. I put my foot down on the floor to get out of bed, and this hand shoots out from under the bed and grabs my ankle. And I freak out. Oh my God. What? No. And I'm backing away like in a horror movie on my butt, scrambling. And there's Mom under the bed, mischievously grinning at me and laughing at me. Classic mom prank.
I'm convinced I'm the favorite child.
Oh, because she didn't hide under your bed and terrorize you?
Oh. Well, that's not true. Dad did decide the one time, I'm sure we've talked about it before, but to start the vehicle up because I was taking forever to get out of the house because he knew it was going to make me come running out in a panic thinking that the whole family was abandoning me.
Right, yeah. That old trick. It worked quite well. You were super annoying to wait for. It's like you had to get your blanket and your pillow and your toy, and then I guess apparently wander around doing all manner of other things that had nothing to do with leaving, and we'd all just be sitting in the car patiently or impatiently waiting. And then I just love it because Dad would look at Mom, and then he'd look at me, and we'd just nod. And he'd start the car like family agreement, and you'd come screeching out of the house, "Don't leave me!"
You know, I have to say that this is probably where a lot of my issues stem from as a child. Causing all kinds of issues and trauma in my life. See, I would never do that to my children. I would not intentionally make them feel like I was getting ready to abandon them. No, if my kids are taking forever to get ready, you know what I do?
What would you do?
I come inside and I just start yelling at them.
Is that more or less effective than just pretending to leave without them?
No, I don't yell at them. But no, I'll come inside and I'll start just nagging them basically to get them to hurry.
Makes sense.
It's better than making them feel like I'm about to abandon them. Although I wonder if my children would think I was trying to abandon them.
What if you actually drove off just out of sight for a short time? Would they be like, I guess we're not going, and just sit down and watch TV or something?
Probably. They probably like, saves me a trip.
Kids. You know what, bro? It was the 80s. What can I say?
Yes. So one has come to mind while we're talking about cars, the best prank that has been played on me. So at this company I used to work at, they had this little annex building off to the side. It was the safety building. And I had to go there after work because we would earn safety bucks for working safely and various reasons. You would earn these bucks and you'd go spend it in their little safety store. So I had saved up enough to get a Carhartt jacket. So I pulled up. I left my keys in my car. It was running. It was like going to be in and out. And as I'm walking in, this other guy was coming out. We say our hellos, and I go inside and I go buy my Carhartt jacket. And I come out, and it's literally been less than 2 minutes. And I come out, and my car, which was the only car out front other than his car, was gone. And so was his car. And I'm just standing there looking at this empty parking lot, and my car is nowhere in sight. And so I'm like, fuck, my car just got stolen. So what do? Well, I get on the phone and I call 911 to report my car stolen. So I'm on 911, on the phone with 911, letting them know that my car just got stolen, what happened, blah, blah, blah. And then I get this little ding on my phone. And I look at my phone, and it's a text message from the guy. He says, "Hey, just so you know, if you haven't found your car, it's around the corner." And I was like, never mind. I'm being pranked. I know where my car is now.
Let's get into listener responses. Since we're doing a game, well, the last couple of games, full of phobias, friend of the podcast, John, texted Ryan, and here's what he said. My coworker has an actual holes phobia. She's afraid of the holes in speakers, so she tapes paper over it on the desk phone. I didn't know this and came to debug a network issue and tore it off, and she kind of freaked out on me. LOL. I'd like to know more about that. What did she say? Did she scream? Did she jump? Did she cower under her desk and cry? We need more details, John. But hey, that's the first time I've heard of that holes phobia. To me, it's like falling in a hole that you can't see the bottom of. That's where I would be afraid of a hole.
Right.
Or if some strange animal head that was reptilian popped out of the hole and popped back in, that hole is not good with me anymore. Bad hole. Well, I think that's all we've got for this week. Remember, send us your stories that are inspired by the games we play. We want to hear them. I've found out that people aren't as forthcoming as I am. When I listen to a podcast, they're like, write us. Give us a voice message. I'm like, okay, sure. But people are too shy. They're more shy than me, so they don't want to. So if you're too nervous to leave a voice message, you can email us. Visit thepoliticsfreepodcast.com. Scroll down, links to the voice message service or our email, which is thepoliticsfreepodcast@outlook.com.
Hey, you know what I was thinking?
Uh-huh.
Even if people have stories that somehow kind of relate to what we've been talking about,
literally,
we should hear those too.
Anything you think of. If it reminds you of something that seems unrelated, we want them. Send them in, and we want to share them on the podcast. Of course, share the podcast as well. If you've been enjoying it, we would love it if you would. We've been getting more and more people listening over the last couple of weeks. It's been really lovely. So I think you guys are sharing. So thank you. Thank you if you have shared, and please share some more. You can share by texting somebody a link to an episode you've enjoyed. That's what I always do when I share a podcast. I just go, hey, I think you'd appreciate this, and I text them the link. Share it on your social media, or just tell someone. Tell a friend that you love this podcast, and they will too. And last but not least, if you want to get this game, Your Worst Nightmare, and play it, you can visit PressmanToy.com and search Your Worst Nightmare, or just go right into the show notes of this episode and click on the link directly to the product. They are not a sponsor, but it's a fun game, so you can go ahead and grab it and play it. Until we play again.
Until we play again.
Brilliant.